Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. How many times have you given and given only to be met with silence, indifference, or worse, disrespect? Let me tell you something today, being nice isn't the answer. Nice will get you overlooked. Nice will leave you waiting for scraps of appreciation that may never come. Many people confuse being nice with being strong. It's an easy trap to fall into, especially when society constantly pushes the idea that being agreeable, accommodating, and pleasant is the way to win people over. While kindness is indeed a virtue, there's a fine line between kindness and being overly nice to the point where others start to perceive you as someone who can be taken for granted. When you are always putting others' needs before your own, avoiding conflict at all costs, and bending over backward to please, it doesn't communicate strength, it communicates a lack of boundaries. You see, people often mistake niceness for weakness because excessive niceness can appear to come from a place of fear rather than strength. Fear of rejection, fear of confrontation, fear of being disliked. When you're too nice, it's as if you're saying, I'll give up my time, my energy, and even my self-respect, just so you'll think well of me. That kind of energy isn't empowering, it's disempowering. It's like building a house on quicksand. No matter how solid it seems at first, it's destined to sink. Now, let's be clear, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being kind. Kindness comes from a place of abundance. It's a choice made out of confidence and compassion. But being overly nice, on the other hand, often comes from a place of insecurity. It's driven by a desire to keep the peace, to avoid confrontation, or to earn approval. And when people sense that your niceness stems from a need for their validation, they may start to exploit it, whether consciously or not. Think about it. If you're always the one to say yes, when someone asks for a favor, even when it's inconvenient for you, what happens? Over time, people stop appreciating your generosity and start expecting it. They'll come to you not because they respect you, but because they know you won't say no. You become the go-to person, but not in a way that feels empowering or reciprocal. Instead, it leaves you feeling drained, unappreciated, and sometimes even resentful. Being nice also sends a subtle message that you're afraid to rock the boat. And when people sense that fear, they may feel like they have the upper hand in the relationship. They might test your limits, push your boundaries, and take as much as you're willing to give because they know you'll let them. Niceness, when it's not backed by strength, can make you an easy target for manipulation. Strength, on the other hand, communicates a completely different message. When you operate from a place of strength, you don't feel the need to be overly nice to gain approval or avoid conflict. You don't feel obligated to say yes when you really want to say no. You don't compromise your values or needs just to make someone else happy. Instead, you stand firm in who you are and what you believe. And people respect that. They may not always like it, but they respect it. Strength doesn't mean being rude or dismissive. It means being clear, honest, and authentic. It means showing kindness when it's deserved, but also knowing when to withhold your energy from situations or people who don't reciprocate it. It's about setting boundaries and sticking to them, even if it makes others uncomfortable. Because at the end of the day, your peace, your energy, and your self-respect are far more important than someone else's temporary approval. People often wonder why their relationships feel one-sided or why they attract people who take advantage of them. The answer lies in how you present yourself. If you're always giving without asking for anything in return, always accommodating without expressing your own needs, you're teaching people how to treat you. You're showing them that you don't value yourself enough to expect reciprocity. And if you don't value yourself, why should they? This isn't to say that you should stop being nice altogether. Niceness, when balanced with self-respect, is a beautiful quality. But it has to come from a place of strength, not weakness. When you're nice because you want to be, not because you feel like you have to be, it changes the dynamic completely. People sense the difference between someone who is kind out of abundance and someone who is nice out of obligation. Operating from a place of strength means understanding your worth and refusing to settle for less than you deserve. It means being willing to walk away from situations or relationships that don't honor you. It means saying no when you need to and being okay with the fact that not everyone will like it. Strength is about owning your power and not being afraid to use it. When you shift from being overly nice to being kind but strong, you'll notice a change in how people treat you. They'll start to respect your time, your energy, and your boundaries. They'll think twice before taking you for granted because they'll know you won't tolerate it. And most importantly, you'll start to feel more empowered in your relationships and in your life as a whole. Remember this: being overly nice won't earn you the respect you deserve, but being kind, clear, and strong will. Choose strength over fear, boundaries over people-pleasing, and self-respect over approval, because that's where true power lies. Setting boundaries is one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself, yet it's often one of the hardest. Why? Because we're conditioned to believe that saying no is rude, that drawing a line is selfish, or that standing firm will make us unlikable. But here's the truth: boundaries are not about pushing people away, they're about defining how close someone can get to you while still respecting who you are. When you don't set boundaries, you leave yourself open to being taken advantage of. It's like leaving your front door wide open for anyone to walk in. People might not always have bad intentions, but if you don't make it clear where the line is, they'll cross it without even realizing. They'll call you at all hours, expect you to drop everything for them, or rely on you to fix their problems, all while you're left feeling exhausted and drained. Boundaries are not walls. They're not about shutting people out or creating distance for the sake of it. Instead, boundaries are the guidelines you set to protect your time, energy, and emotional well-being. They're a way of saying, this is what I'm comfortable with. This is what I can offer. And this is where I draw the line. And let me tell you, setting those guidelines is not just healthy, it's necessary. The beauty of boundaries is that they teach people how to treat you. If you're always available, always saying yes, and always putting others first, you're sending the message that your needs don't matter. And people will treat you accordingly. But when you start setting boundaries, when you start saying no to what doesn't serve you, you begin to shift the dynamic. You teach people that your time and energy are valuable, and they'll begin to treat you with the respect you deserve. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you have to be harsh or confrontational. It's about being firm yet respectful. For example, if someone constantly interrupts your work with personal requests, you don't have to snap at them. Instead, you can calmly say, I'd love to help, but I'm working on something important right now. Let's talk later. That one statement sets a boundary without creating unnecessary tension. One of the biggest challenges with boundaries is overcoming the fear of how others will react. Will they be upset? Will they think you're being cold or unkind? Here's the thing: their reaction is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself, to protect your peace, your energy, and your well-being. If someone truly cares about you, they'll understand and respect your boundaries. If they don't, that's a reflection of their issues, not yours. It's also important to remember that boundaries are not one size fits all. What works in one relationship might not work in another. The boundaries you set with a colleague will likely look very different from the ones you set with a close friend or family member. The key is to be honest with yourself about what you need and to communicate those needs clearly. Sometimes setting boundaries requires you to make difficult choices. There will be times when people push back, challenge your limits, or even try to guilt you into changing your mind. In those moments, you have to stand firm. Because the moment you compromise your boundaries, you're sending the message that they're negotiable, and once people see that, they'll keep testing you. It's okay if setting boundaries feels uncomfortable at first. If you've spent most of your life being a people pleaser, the idea of saying no can feel terrifying. But the more you practice, the easier it becomes. Start small. Say no to something minor and notice how it feels. You might be surprised at how freeing it is. From there, you can begin setting boundaries in other areas of your life. One of the most important aspects of boundaries is consistency. It's not enough to set a boundary once and then let it slide the next time. Boundaries lose their power when they're not enforced. If someone repeatedly disrespects your boundaries, you have to be willing to take action, whether that means having a direct conversation or limiting your interactions with them. It's also crucial to recognize that boundaries are as much for you as they are for others. When you set boundaries, you're giving yourself permission to prioritize your needs. You're allowing yourself to rest, to recharge, and to focus on what truly matters to you. And in doing so, you become a better, healthier version of yourself, not just for you, but for everyone around you. There's a saying that goes, "You can't pour from an empty cup." That's what boundaries are about. They ensure that you're not constantly giving away your energy until there's nothing left for yourself. They're a way of protecting your emotional, mental, and physical well-being so that you can show up fully for the people and things that matter most. Don't be afraid to draw the line. Don't be afraid to say, "This is what I need," or "This is what I'm not okay with," because the people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries, and the ones who don't, they have no place in your life anyway. Boundaries are not just a defense mechanism, they're a declaration of self-worth. And there's nothing more powerful than that. Prioritizing self-growth is one of the most transformative decisions you can make for your life. It's about stepping back from the constant demands and expectations of others and asking yourself, what do I truly want? Who do I want to become? Far too often, people get caught up in pleasing everyone else, chasing validation, or trying to fit into someone else's version of who they should be. In doing so, they forget about their own goals, dreams, and potential. Self-growth isn't just about achieving success. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, independent of anyone else's opinions or expectations. When you focus on self-growth, you take responsibility for your own happiness and fulfillment. You stop waiting for someone to give you permission to dream big or to tell you it's okay to go after what you want. Instead, you become the person who decides. This shift in mindset is incredibly empowering because it places the control of your life firmly in your hands. No longer are you a passenger being carried along by the currents of others' desires. You become the captain of your own ship, charting a course toward a life that truly aligns with your values and aspirations. The process of self-growth requires a willingness to reflect honestly on your life. You have to look at what's working and what's not. Are there habits holding you back? Are you surrounding yourself with people who encourage you to be your best self? Or are you stuck in relationships that drain your energy and undermine your confidence? Taking stock of these things can be uncomfortable, but it's a necessary step in becoming the person you're meant to be. Growth doesn't come from staying in your comfort zone. It comes from facing challenges head-on and choosing to learn from them. One of the most important aspects of prioritizing self-growth is investing in yourself. This could mean pursuing education, developing new skills, or dedicating time to hobbies and passions that bring you joy. It could also mean focusing on your physical health, mental well-being, or spiritual growth. The key is to recognize that you are your greatest asset, and the more you invest in yourself, the more value you bring to the world and to the people around you. You can't pour into others if you're running on empty, and self-growth ensures that you're continually replenishing your own reserves. Prioritizing self-growth doesn't mean you're being selfish. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When you commit to becoming the best version of yourself, you're not just benefiting your own life, you're elevating everyone you interact with. Your relationships become richer, your contributions more meaningful, and your presence more inspiring. You set an example for others to follow, showing them that it's okay to dream big, take risks, and strive for more. Growth isn't just about you. It's about the positive ripple effect it creates in the lives of others. Focusing on self-growth requires a certain level of discipline and focus. It's easy to get distracted by the noise of everyday life, the endless to-do lists, the demands of work, and the expectations of others. But if you don't make your growth a priority, no one else will. You have to carve out time for it, even if it means saying no to things that don't align with your goals. This isn't always easy, especially if you're used to putting others' needs before your own. But it's essential. if you want to create a life that's truly fulfilling. Another important aspect of self-growth is learning to let go of what no longer serves you. This might mean releasing toxic relationships, outdated beliefs, or habits that keep you stuck in the past. Growth requires space, and you can't move forward if you're still holding on to things that weigh you down. Letting go can be painful, but it's also liberating. It opens the door to new opportunities, new relationships, and new levels of success. As you prioritize self-growth, you'll also start to notice changes in how others perceive and interact with you. People are drawn to those who are confident, self-assured, and constantly striving for improvement. When you focus on becoming your best self, you naturally attract others who share your values and aspirations. On the flip side, those who are threatened by your growth may try to hold you back. They might criticize you, question your choices, or attempt to make you feel guilty for putting yourself first. In these moments, it's important to stay true to your vision and remind yourself why you started this journey in the first place. The beauty of self-growth is that it's a lifelong process. There's no finish line, no point at which you've arrived. There's always more to learn, more ways to evolve, and more opportunities to expand your potential. This continuous journey is what makes life so exciting and meaningful. Every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to the person you're meant to be. And with each step, you gain a deeper sense of confidence, clarity, and purpose. By prioritizing self-growth, you're sending a powerful message not just to others, but to yourself. You're saying, I matter, my dreams matter, my life matters, and that's a message worth repeating every single day. Because when you focus on your own growth, you create a life that is not only fulfilling for you, but also an inspiration to everyone around you. Redefining your value is a journey of recognizing your worth and refusing to let others dictate how you see yourself. It's about breaking free from the narratives that have been placed on you, whether by society, relationships, or your own insecurities, and stepping into the truth of who you are. Too often, people allow external forces to determine their value. They rely on validation from others, measuring their worth based on how they're treated, what they're given, or how much approval they receive. But the truth is, your value doesn't come from anyone else, it comes from within you. To redefine your value, you first have to let go of the idea that your worth is tied to what you can do for others. Many people fall into the trap of thinking that they have to constantly prove themselves, whether by being overly accommodating, sacrificing their needs, or working tirelessly to gain approval. This mindset leaves you feeling depleted and undervalued because no matter how much you give, it's never enough for those who don't truly appreciate you. Real value isn't about what you can offer to others, it's about understanding your intrinsic worth, independent of anyone else's opinions or expectations. This process begins with self-awareness. Take the time to reflect on who you are, what you stand for, and what you bring to the table. Think about your talents, strengths, and unique qualities. What makes you different? What do you excel at? What do you love about yourself? These are the building blocks of your value. When you focus on these aspects, you start to see that your worth isn't contingent on anyone else's approval or recognition. It exists because you exist, and that alone is enough. Redefining your value also means setting higher standards for how you allow others to treat you. If you accept less than you deserve, you're reinforcing the belief that you're not worthy of more. But when you raise your standards, when you decide that you won't tolerate disrespect, neglect, or anything less than genuine care, you send a powerful message to yourself and to others: I know my worth, and I won't settle for less. This doesn't mean you have to be harsh or unkind. It simply means being firm in your expectations and unapologetic in your self-respect. A big part of redefining your value is learning to say no. When you're constantly saying yes to others, especially at the expense of your own needs, you're teaching people that your time and energy are not as valuable as theirs. Saying no isn't about being selfish, it's about honoring yourself. It's about recognizing that your time, energy, and well-being matter just as much as anyone else's. When you start saying no to things that don't align with your values or priorities, you make room for what truly matters. You reclaim your power and take control of your life. Another crucial aspect of redefining your value is changing the way you talk to yourself. The internal dialogue you have every day shapes how you see yourself and, in turn, how others see you. If you're constantly criticizing yourself, focusing on your flaws, or downplaying your achievements, you're diminishing your own value. But when you start speaking to yourself with kindness, encouragement, and confidence, you begin to shift that narrative. Instead of saying, "I'm not good enough," start saying, "I am capable, I am worthy. I bring value to every space I enter." Over time, this shift in mindset will transform how you see yourself and how others perceive you. Redefining your value also means embracing your imperfections. No one is perfect, and chasing perfection is a futile effort that only leads to frustration and self-doubt. Your flaws don't make you less valuable, they make you human. They're a part of your unique story, and they contribute to the depth and authenticity of who you are. When you accept yourself fully, imperfections and all, you stop seeking external validation to fill the gaps in your self-worth. Instead, you stand confidently in the knowledge that you are enough just as you are. It's important to understand that redefining your value is not about arrogance or superiority. It's about self-respect. It's about acknowledging your worth without diminishing the worth of others. When you value yourself, you're able to value others more genuinely because your sense of self isn't dependent on comparison or competition. You can celebrate others' successes without feeling threatened, and you can maintain healthy relationships built on mutual respect. Redefining your value requires patience and persistence. It's not a one-time decision, but an ongoing commitment to yourself. There will be moments of doubt, times when you're tempted to fall back into old patterns of seeking approval or settling for less. In those moments, remind yourself of the progress you've made and the vision you have for your life. Stay grounded in your truth and keep moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time. When you redefine your value, you're not just changing the way you see yourself, you're changing the way the world sees you. You're stepping into a new level of confidence, clarity, and self-assuredness that radiates from within. You're showing others that you know your worth and that you're no longer willing to compromise it for anything or anyone. And in doing so, you create a life that reflects the respect, love, and value you've always deserved. Creating boundaries is an essential act of self-respect and self-care. It is not about pushing others away or building walls around yourself. Instead, it is about defining the limits of what is acceptable in your interactions and relationships. Boundaries allow you to protect your energy, maintain your peace, and establish a sense of control over your life. Without them, you risk being pulled in every direction by the demands and expectations of others, often at the expense of your own well-being. Setting boundaries is not just a practical tool, it's a declaration of your self-worth. One of the first steps in creating boundaries is understanding why they are necessary. If you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, resentful, or drained after certain interactions, it's often a sign that your boundaries have been crossed or that they weren't in place to begin with. Many people struggle with the idea of boundaries because they fear being seen as rude, selfish, or unkind. But the reality is that boundaries are a form of kindness not just to yourself, but to others as well. They create clarity in relationships, reducing misunderstandings and fostering mutual respect. To establish boundaries, you need to start by identifying your own needs and limits. This requires self-awareness and a willingness to be honest with yourself about what you can and cannot tolerate. Consider the areas of your life where you feel the most pressure or discomfort. Are you constantly saying yes to things you'd rather decline? Do you feel obligated to respond to every message, attend every event, or meet every request, even when it inconveniences you? Recognizing these patterns is the first step toward making a change. Once you've identified your boundaries, the next step is to communicate them clearly and assertively. This can be challenging, especially if you're not used to advocating for yourself. But it's important to remember that you have a right to set limits, and expressing them doesn't require aggression or hostility. A simple, direct statement like "I need some time to myself," or I can't take on another project right now can go a long way in establishing your boundaries. The key is to be firm yet respectful, making it clear that your boundaries are not up for negotiation. Enforcing your boundaries is just as important as setting them. There will be times when people test your limits, either intentionally or unintentionally. In these moments, it's crucial to stand your ground. This doesn't mean reacting with anger or frustration, but rather calmly reaffirming your position. For example, if someone persists in crossing a boundary you've already communicated, you might say, "I've already explained my needs and I need you to respect that." Consistency is key. The more you enforce your boundaries, the more others will come to understand and respect them. It's also important to recognize that creating boundaries may lead to some resistance or pushback, especially from people who are used to having unrestricted access to your time and energy. This is normal, and it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. In fact, it's often a sign that your boundaries are necessary. Some people may try to guilt you or make you feel selfish for prioritizing yourself, but their reaction is not your responsibility. Your primary obligation is to protect your well-being, not to accommodate everyone else's expectations. Creating boundaries is not just about saying no to others, it's also about saying yes to yourself. By establishing limits, you free up time and energy to focus on the things that truly matter to you. This might mean pursuing personal goals, spending time with loved ones, or simply enjoying moments of rest and solitude. Boundaries allow you to live with greater intention, aligning your actions with your values and priorities. One of the most empowering aspects of creating boundaries is the sense of freedom it brings. When you no longer feel obligated to meet every demand or please everyone around you, you gain the ability to make choices that serve your best interests. This doesn't mean you stop caring about others, it means you start caring for yourself in the same way. Boundaries are not about shutting people out, they're about creating healthy dynamics where both parties feel respected and valued. Creating boundaries also requires self-compassion. There will be times when you struggle to uphold your limits, especially if you're dealing with deeply ingrained habits or relationships that have long been unbalanced. It's important to be patient with yourself and to recognize that boundary setting is a skill that takes time to develop. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small, and remind yourself that every step you take toward establishing boundaries is a step toward a healthier, more fulfilling life. Creating boundaries is an act of self-love. It's a way of telling yourself that you matter, that your time and energy are valuable, and that you deserve to be treated with respect. It's not always easy, especially if you're used to putting others first, but it's one of the most powerful things you can do to take control of your life. When you create and uphold boundaries, you're not just protecting your peace, you're building a foundation for a life that reflects your true worth and priorities. Taking control of your narrative is one of the most empowering steps you can take in your journey towards self-respect and fulfillment. Your narrative is the story you tell about yourself, the beliefs, perceptions, and values that shape how you see the world and your place within it. It influences your decisions, relationships, and overall sense of purpose. Too often, people let others dictate their narrative, accepting labels, expectations, or judgments that don't align with their true identity. Taking control of your narrative means reclaiming your voice and defining who you are on your terms. The first step in taking control of your narrative is recognizing where you've allowed others to shape your story. Reflect on the messages you've internalized from childhood, society, or past relationships. Maybe someone told you that you weren't good enough, and you started to believe it. Perhaps you were encouraged to fit into a particular mold, suppressing parts of yourself to meet others' expectations. These external influences can subtly or overtly steer your narrative, leaving you feeling disconnected from your authentic self. Recognizing these patterns is essential for breaking free from them. Once you've identified the external forces that have shaped your narrative, it's time to challenge them. Ask yourself, are these beliefs serving me? Are they true? For example, if you've been told you're not capable of achieving something, question the evidence behind that statement. Often you'll find that these limiting beliefs are based on someone else's fears or biases, not on your actual potential. Rewriting your narrative starts with rejecting the falsehoods that have held you back and replacing them with truths that empower you. Taking control of your narrative also involves defining your own values and priorities. What matters most to you? What kind of person do you want to be? When you live according to your own values, you're no longer swayed by societal pressures or the opinions of others. Instead, you're grounded in a clear sense of purpose. This clarity allows you to make decisions that align with your authentic self, rather than seeking validation or approval from others. One of the most powerful tools for rewriting your narrative is self-talk. The way you speak to yourself shapes your beliefs and ultimately your reality. If your internal dialogue is filled with negativity or self-doubt, it's time to change the script. Replace thoughts like "I can't" or "I'm not enough" with affirmations that reinforce your worth and capability. Tell yourself, "I am strong, I am capable, and I am deserving of success." Over time, these positive statements become part of your narrative, helping you build confidence and resilience. Taking control of your narrative also requires taking responsibility for your choices. It's easy to blame circumstances or other people for the way your life has unfolded, but true empowerment comes from acknowledging your role in shaping your destiny. This doesn't mean blaming yourself for things beyond your control. It means recognizing the power you have to make different choices moving forward. When you take ownership of your life, you reclaim the pen to write your story. Another essential aspect of taking control of your narrative is setting boundaries with people who try to define you. Not everyone will understand or support your journey, and that's okay. What's important is that you stay true to yourself, even when others try to impose their version of who they think you should be. This might mean distancing yourself from negative influences or having difficult conversations to assert your boundaries. Protecting your narrative is not about cutting people off. It's about ensuring that their voices don't drown out your own. Surrounding yourself with supportive people is also crucial. Seek out individuals who uplift you, believe in your potential, and encourage you to be your best self. These are the people who will help reinforce your positive narrative and provide a safe space for you to grow. Conversely, be mindful of those who consistently undermine your confidence or question your worth. Their negativity has no place in the story you're building for yourself. Taking control of your narrative doesn't mean ignoring your struggles or pretending your past doesn't exist. On the contrary, it means embracing your story, challenges, mistakes, and using it as a foundation for growth. Your experiences have shaped you, but they don't define you. You have the power to choose how you interpret them and what you take from them. By viewing your past through a lens of resilience and learning, you transform setbacks into stepping stones. As you rewrite your narrative, remember that it's a process, not a destination. Your story will evolve as you grow, and that's a good thing. Stay open to new experiences, perspectives, and lessons that can enrich your journey. At the same time, remain anchored in the truth of who you are and what you stand for. Consistency in your values and self-perception is what keeps your narrative strong, even in the face of challenges. Taking control of your narrative is about stepping into your power and living authentically. It's about choosing who you want to be and having the courage to align your actions with that vision. It's not always easy. There will be moments of doubt and resistance, but the reward is a life that reflects your true self. When you own your story, you stop living for others and start living for yourself. You become the author of your life, shaping a narrative that is uniquely, unapologetically yours.